the screen. Just let me know whether my entire screen is visible. Is it visible?
Yes, sir.
So last time we had, I mean, last class we had seen this tree, decision tree, how to construct a decision tree. As I told you, it's, I mean, the problem can get quite lengthy based on the scenario given. So please practice this thing. And before we start with the next topic, that is tree pruning, I just want to tell you a few things. One is that few of them have messaged, around 5 to 6 of them have messaged that they are not able to see their marks. It's like a form is closed, something like that. So I don't think just by going to that link you will get the marks. Uh, I mean, there should be something which will be you must be doing it. Most of them have, I mean, more than 90% have already seen the marks. Very few are not able to see. I don't know why. I have returned. I have got 136 responses. I had returned everything. So maybe just check with your those who are not able to see that small percentage of people who are not able to see. Just check with your friends the settings you need to do to see that posted uh, course. That is one thing. And your midterm is going to start from Monday. Timetable I had shared already. So please make sure that you upload it before time. Emailing of the answer scripts, posting it in Teams chats, or sending it via WhatsApp or some other medium will not be accepted. You must, few of you might already have experienced it in assignment. They are not considering it. That is 5 marks, still okay. This will be 30 marks. It will be a huge bet. So don't take risk. 2 hours 15 minutes is the time. Maybe approx 1 hour 50 minutes. 1 hour 50. 150 is the writing time. In another 20 to 25 minutes is the uploading time. So better start uploading well before the end time. If you start at 10 minutes before and tell I've started net problem, this problem, that won't be accepted. I'm informing while the thing is recording. I don't know how many of you are listening, but don't tell me I didn't know. I have clearly informed. Anything except that handed in scripts will not be evaluated. So it will be a zero. There is no retest as such. For an assignment you are missed because of mailing. Mailing assign few of you have mailed. I am not. No one is considering it. At least DWDM we are not considering it. So that is 5 marks still okay. I mean, not okay, but somewhere better than losing 30 marks here by emailing. So don't take that risk. With this, let me start with the next part, that is tree pruning. So tree pruning is another, I mean, you can tell one of the attribute selection methods. It's not one of the main thing, but you can tell the alternate available for attribute selection. So it's like when your decision tree is built, when your decision tree is built, you have many of the branches. There might be anomalies due to your noise or outliers. So tree pruning is one method which we can use to address this problem, which we call as overfitting of data. So in the figure you can see the left hand side is unpruned tree and the right hand side will be your pruned tree. So the pruned tree usually tends to be smaller and less complex. Thus, so because it is for the small and less complex, it's easier to comprehend, or maybe easier to classify a particular attribute or a particular tuple into one of the classes. So this prune thing will be usually faster and better when classifying data when compared to a unpruned thing. So how does this pruning exactly works? There are two common approaches. One is pre-pruning, and the second method is post-pruning. So pre-pruning, the approach as the name itself suggests, pre-pruning. It's like the tree is pruned by halting the construction at an early stage. It's like at a certain point of time, you decide that this much is enough for me to classify a tuple. Further, the further subtrees are not required. So you stop it there. It's like you're pruning data before the entire decision tree is constructed. So this is pre-pruning. So whenever you stop or halt the node at which you halt the construction of the trees will usually become the leaf, and the leaf will contain the most frequent class among the subset tuples. I will show you an example. Though the second approach is the post pruning, where you first construct the entire tree and then prune it. It is pruning post construction. It's like you're pruning the fully grown tree. You're constructing the entire tree and then pruning it. So it usually happens as that a subtree at a given node is usually pruned by removing the entire node along with the subtree and replacing it with a leaf node. So one example, if you can see in the same figure, uh, see A3. This is one example for post pruning. If you can see here, this entire subtree is pruned and replaced by class B. As I told you, in post pruning, you are replacing it with the most frequent class of the subtree, A3. Here A3 is there. Subtree of A3 is this part. Okay. Here there are three classes. 2 out of 3 is class B. That is maximum number of classes is class B. So you replace that node by a leaf node, and that leaf node will contain the most frequently occurring classes of that subtree. So this is example for post pruning. I told you one algorithm. ID3 is one algorithm. If Infogain is the one attribute selection method which we have used. Infogain, does anyone remember what is the problem? What is the limitations of Infogain for which we went to gain ratio? Do anyone remember it? What is that limitation in Infogain for which uh, gain ratio was actually found out, or maybe will be used? Do anyone remember? Exactly. Prahalad sells too much bias towards one attribute. It's not one attribute. It's like the attribute for which there is too many unique values. For example, your registration number. Student name, same name might be there for hundreds of students. That's fine. But registration number has to be unique. So registration number is one thing. If you take the student database, or if you take the customer database, customer ID, each customer ID is unique. So for a particular attribute, when uh, there are too many values, So your info gain tends to choose that particular attribute for which there is too many unique values as the attribute on which you perform the first what is that tree construction, that is root node. But this is not always, need not be always true. So to take care of this bias, we had used this gain ratio. And the gain ratio is used in algorithm called C4.5. That also I had told. C4.5 is a revised version or enhanced version of your ID3. Okay. There is one more algorithm called CART, C-A-R-T, CART. So in that CART, there is a pruning algorithm called cost complexity. Cost complexity is a pruning algorithm which is used in this CART. So this is an example for your post pruning. Cost complexity is a pruning algorithm which is used in CART. CART is again one of the classification algorithms like ID3 and C4.5. So CART uses this cost complexity, which is one of the pruning algorithm in specific post pruning. Okay. So what happens in this cost complexity? I'll just tell you briefly. Uh, so this cost complexity approach will consider the cost complexity. Cost complexity is how much cost is involved in construction of a tree, of a subtree basically, or a tree in general. So this algorithm or this approach considers the cost complexity of a particular tree to be a function of number of leaves in the tree. So cost complexity is considered by this approach to be a function of number of leaves in that particular tree, and it also considers the error rate of the tree. So this error rate is nothing but the percentage of tuples which is misclassified by the tree. So these two things it will consider. One is cost complexity, which is considered as the function of number of leaves in the tree, and the second parameter which it considers is the error rate. Error rate is the percentage of tuples misclassified by the tree. So these two things it will be considering. That is the cost complexity pruning algorithm. So it starts, the algorithm starts from the bottom of the tree. It's a bottom up approach. So it starts from the bottom for each internal node which it encounters in the process. It computes the cost complexity of the subtree of that particular node. So there is a tree. It will start from bottom of the tree. The moment it encounters an internal node, that is the leaves will be circle. Your internal node will be square or rectangle in nature. So whenever it encounters the internal node, that is rectangle, it will first calculate the cost complexity of the subtree of that particular internal node. It will compute cost complexity of the subtree at n, where n is internal node, and what would be the cost complexity in case that subtree at n is supposed to be pruned. Okay, these two cases it will calculate. One is cost of constructing the subtree at n. One is what would be the cost complexity if the subtree at n is were supposed to be pruned. These two cases cost complexity it will calculate, and the values are compared. If the pruning, one cost complexity which it would have considered is what would be the cost complexity if it is supposed to be pruned. If this case would result a smaller cost complexity, then the subtree is pruned. If pruning results in a higher cost complexity, then it is not pruned. It is kept, that particular subtree is kept as it is. So this is one small example of pruning algorithm. which is called cost complexity, which is used in your CART. CART is one of the classification algorithm. And as I told you, C4.5, that is also one of the algorithm. It uses a method, again pruning method, called pessimistic pruning. Pessimistic pruning. So which is quite similar to your cost complexity method, uh, and it also uses the error rate, which to make decisions whether the subtree should be pruned or not. Nothing much with respect to the pessimistic thing. I'm just telling the different possibilities. And then one of the other alternatives is, rather than pruning tree based on the this error rates, we can also prune the trees based on the number of bits required to encode a particular subtree. Okay. So it's like the best pruned tree is one that minimizes the number of encoding bits. So this is also one of the way. So three types of pruning we'll saw. One is, mainly there are two approaches: pre-pruning and post-pruning. These are the specific pruning algorithms used in few of the classification methods. For example, CART uses cost complexity. C4.5 uses pessimistic pruning, which is similar to cost complexity. It also uses error rates. And apart from error rates, one alternative is to you consider number of bits that is required to encode a tree. So the best pruned tree in this particular method is the one which minimizes the number of encoding bits. And one more thing with respect to this pruning, pre-pruning and post-pruning is, one fact or one comparison is, post-pruning requires more computation than pre-pruning. Okay? Because pre-pruning you're halting at a particular thing, but post-pruning you are, this figure is not related to it. The figure is related to the next thing. I'm just telling one more thing. So it's like post pruning requires more computation, because you have to, from top to bottom, you have to go through all the nodes, leaf nodes, whatever is there, then decide which subtree to be pruned. So that requires more computation rather than pre-pruning. And there is no single pruning method that has that you can tell it is more better or more efficient than the other pruning method. It totally depends on the uh, problem at your hand, the application at your hand, what type of data you are dealing with. So the problem with the post pruning, pre pruning, or decision tree in general is two things that is shown in the figure. Figure A, that is this part, shows one of the problems, that is repetition. Decision tree suffers from two problems. One is repetition, the other is replication. Figure A shows the problem of repetition. So repetition is one where each of the attribute, not each of the attribute, say particular attribute, say A1. A1, if I assume it to be age. So it's like attribute age is repeatedly tested. See, age is less than 60, age is less than 45, age is less than 50. Say particular attribute, a single particular attribute, say age or A1 in general, is repeatedly tested. So repetition is one problem. The second problem which occurs is replication. So there might be duplicate subtrees existing in a single decision tree. So this duplication, or it's like same subtree existing in two different parts of same decision tree, can impede your accuracy and other efficiency of your decision tree. So this is one. These are the two problems of your decision tree. One is replication, that like here. Other it is repetition, that repeatedly you perform test on a single attribute. Replication is same subtree is present multiple times. So these are the two problems of your decision tree, or you can say decision tree suffers from replication as well as your repetition. The next thing is Bayes classification. So this is one of the classification method which we'll be studying. Again, there is a problem with respect to it, and you understanding this Bayes classification is important. So it's basically used in pattern recognition problems. So pattern recognition is also, I think, elective which will be offered for you next semester, which is full of statistics and maths basically. So there also will study this particular method. It's called Bayes classification method. So I want the people, I mean everyone to concentrate, because based on this classification method, there are problems which you will need to solve, multiple scenarios which you will need to understand and then solve. First, you will see the theory part, then slowly go to the problem. And I want you to solve the problem and let me know the answers, either by unmuting or maybe typing. Okay. So first, we'll see what are these Bayesian classifiers. As I told you, it is nothing but statistics. So Bayesian classifier are statistical classifiers in nature, in general. They predict, that is Bayesian classifiers predict class membership probabilities. So given a particular tuple, they will give you the probability that tuple belongs to a particular class. Okay. So this is what your Bayesian classifier does in general. So we will be using a particular classifier called as naive Bayesian classifier for this purpose. So your naive Bayesian classifier assumes that effect of an attribute value on a particular class is independent of values of other attributes. Okay. This is the assumption that it makes, that a particular value of an attribute is independent of values of other attributes. This assumption is called class conditional independence. So this particular assumption is made to simplify your computations involved. So in this sense, that is, since it is simplifying the computations, the name has been given as naive. Naive means something like which is very simple or very at the beginning stage. If you call something naive, which means that it is very simple kind of thing. Since the assumption is made, I mean this class Bayesian naive Bayesian classifier assumes something which is called as class conditional independence. This assumption is made to simplify the computations involved. It is given the name as naive Bayesian classifier. Now we'll see what exactly this Bayesian theorem tells. So we are assuming that there is a X, which is a data tuple. I hope you know the tuple. Tuple means an entire thing, entire row kind of thing. X be a data tuple. In Bayesian terms, we call this X as evidence. So usually it is described by a set of n attributes. As I told you, X is a row. Each row might contain multiple attributes which would definitely belong to multiple, I mean multiple values which belong to multiple attributes. So X is a data tuple. In Bayesian terms, this is known as evidence, and each evidence or maybe each X will be made up of n attributes or n values. So we also consider H, which is some hypothesis such that the tuple X belongs to a specified class C. So there are two things which we'll be considering. X, the data tuple, and H is some hypothesis which tells that X belongs to a specified class C. So for this classification problems, we would want to determine P of H given X, that is probability of a particular hypothesis being true given evidence, that is X. So this you can infer as the probability that hypothesis H holds good given X or given the evidence. So in other words, if you want me to put the same thing in other words, it's like we would be looking for probability that a tuple X belongs to class C given that we know the attribute description of X. So this particular thing P H given X is called the posterior probability. It's called posterior probability of H conditioned on X. It's like given X kind of thing. Posterior probability of H given X. So one example I would like to give in this case is like if you consider a customer database. So in this particular database, the only attributes which we'll be considering is age and income. Only these two attributes. And the hypothesis, evidence, X, evidence or the tuple, if you assume it, the evidence has X is a 35-year-old customer. I'm repeating it. We are considering just age and income only in the database. So if age of X, that is evidence given as 35 years age and income is 40,000. So H is this X is 35 years of age and 40,000 income. That is the evidence given or the tuple in the database. Suppose that H is a hypothesis which states that customer will buy a computer. This is the hypothesis. H is a hypothesis which tells that customer will buy a computer. X is the evidence or data tuple which tells that customer is 35 years and income is 40,000. So this P of H given X the entire P of H given X, the probability that hypothesis will hold true given X. For this particular example will be something like this. P of H given X reflects the probability that the customer X will buy a computer given we know the customer's age and income. This is the posterior probability. And there is something called a priori probability, that is just P of H. There is no X, it is just P of H. This is known as a priori probability. In the same example which I have given, P of H is the probability that any given customer will buy a computer regardless of age and income or any other outside influence for that matter. This is P of H given X. Person will buy a computer given some information X. that is posterior probability. Just P of H is called a priori probability. That is, a person will buy a computer regardless of what his age or income is. Okay. Then one more thing which you have to know is P of x given h. Okay. This is h given x. The other thing is x given h. Okay. So this particular thing, what you are seeing, h given x is posterior probability of h condition on x. P of x given h is posterior probability of x condition on h. So if you consider the same example to explain this x given h, you can say that it is the probability of a customer x, probability that a particular customer x is 35-year-old and earns 40,000, given that we know that he will buy a computer. Ulta of this particular thing tells the customer is 35 years old, the person will buy a computer, that is H, given that customer is 35 years and 40,000, earns 40,000. The ulta of this is, that is X given H, posterior probability of X conditioned on H, is the customer X is 35-year-old and 40,000, given that we know the customer will buy a computer. Okay. And again, P of X is a priori probability of X. So these four things you need to know. So H of X is one thing, X given H is one thing, P of H is one thing, and P of X is one thing. Okay. This is the Bayes theorem. Bayes theorem is given by this formula. That is, you have to find posterior probability of H conditioned on X. That is this. Provided you know posterior probability of X conditioned on H, a priori probability of H, a priori probability of X. Provided you know this, you will be finding out posterior probability of H. Okay. We will see how this Naive Bayesian classification works step by step. So we will be considering assuming D as the training set along with the class labels. Each tuple X is also called as evidence. As I told you, it's a set of values or attributes. So this is the step one. There is a data set D with it's a training data set. It will contain a set of tuples and associated class. And each tuple will be a n-dimensional attribute vector like this. Which contains tuples from n attributes, say a1 to an. Now suppose there are m classes, c1 to cm. And given this tuple x, your Bayesian classifier, what it does, it will predict that x belongs to a class having the highest posterior probability conditioned on x. Highest posterior probability conditioned on x. Okay. That is, your naive Bayesian classifier predicts a tuple X belongs to a particular class Ci. That's this formula. In given a this is you will be training using a test. Training set. X is a test set. You don't know which class it belongs to. You are trying to predict or classify the tuple to a particular class. Your naive Bayesian classifier predicts that X belongs to a particular class Ci if and only if this condition is met. That is maximum P of a particular class conditioned on X. So this is called your maximum posterior hypothesis. That is given by this formula. If you can use this particular equation in the Bayesian theorem, you will end up getting this. You have to maximize this because this particular tuple X will be assigned to a class Ci provided the probability of class Ci is maximum. So for that, you will be, if you put this particular thing in this particular formula, that is Bayesian, you will end up getting this thing. That is your posterior probability of a particular class conditioned on X. This you have to find, and this you have to maximize. So this PCI given X should be maximized. This is a maximization problem. So it is also called as maximum posteriori hypothesis. So the next thing you have to remember is P of X. This particular thing, P of X is constant for all the classes. See here, something will change as the class change. I will be from 1 to M. M is the number of classes in a particular data set. Here when I is 1, I is 2, I is 3 till I is M, this term will change, this term will change, this term will change because Ci is present there. But the denominator will not change. P of X is not dependent on C. There is no C term involved. That's class term. So this will be constant for all the classes. So for you to maximize the left hand side, you have to maximize just the numerator part. Okay. Here again you have to see or consider one thing. Suppose that class priori probabilities are not known. Say you don't know the class priori probabilities. Then you have to assume that the classes are equally likely to occur. That is, P of C1 is equal to P of C2 is equal to P of C3 till is equal to P of C of Cm. So this particular thing you don't know. If you don't know or the class priori probabilities are not given in the question or in the data set or anywhere, you have to assume that they are equal. That is, the class are equally possible. That is, P of C1 is equal to P of C2 is equal to P of Cm. That is, M is the number of classes. So this is one thing. The next thing would be given a particular data set with many attributes. Say there are too many attributes to consider. Then it is extremely expensive, or it becomes computationally expensive to compute this particular term, that is posterior probability of X condition on particular class. Okay. So to reduce this computation in evaluating, this particular term, we assume that naive assumption, that is class conditional independence. So this assumptions, by assuming this, we are presuming that attribute values are conditionally independent of one another given label of a class. We assume the class conditional independence. Based on this assumption, you will be getting this, or will be calculating this particular term by this particular formula. Okay. So it's like a cross product of all the things. This number of attributes. This you can easily find out by giving. Once you get the training tuples, you will solve one problem. So the next final thing is to predict the class label. You know, x of ci. X of ci is calculated by using this formula. You know this p of ci. You know p of x, that is constant for all the classes or all the tuples. To predict your class label x, that is what is the class for a given tuple, test tuple. Okay. So this particular thing, p x, that is posterior probability of x condition ci into this particular thing, p of ci, is calculated for all the classes. If there are m classes, you will be doing this for m class. So you will be allotting this to the maximum value. That is, you will be this product for which you get the maximum value for that particular class. You will be allotting that particular tuple x. So how effective? You can ask how effective of this Bayesian classifiers are. So various studies or research have proved that it is quite or almost comparable with the decision tree and neural network classifiers in most of the cases or most of the domains. And this Bayesian classifier is also having minimum error rate when you compare to all other classifiers such as your neural networks or maybe decision trees. So that is one advantage of this. So based on this information, solve one problem. This particular problem, for this particular problem, we will be using the same data set which I had shown in the last class. So now I want you to get involved. So this is the tuple which is given. You are asked to find out class of this tuple by using Bayesian classifiers. You have to predict class of tuple x. Okay. So what is that one thing you have to do? One thing you have to, your goal is to maximize this, that is p x ci into p of ci. This particular thing should be maximum for all the classes. Class will be from 1 to m. Okay. So here in that particular data set, how many classes are there? Anyone? How many classes were there in the data set which we had considered in the last class?
Two.
Anyone? Two. Yatin says two. What is that? Is yes and no. Classes are yes and no. There are only two classes. So you have to find out p of x given c1 into P of C1 and P of X given C2 into P of C2, where I is equal to 1 and 2. 1 and 2 here is two classes, that is S and no. Okay. So the first thing while solving this problem, you have to find PC of I, this part, the second term here. Okay. That is given by there are two classes. Okay. So the question tells what is the probability that a particular customer say X, for which this is the details given, buys a computer. Okay. So you are trying to classify whether the buys computer is a S or a no. Buys a computer is a S or a no, that you are trying to find out. Okay. So the first thing which you will be doing is I will just open Word. Here you are trying to find P of buys computer equal to S. That is the first class C1. For this you have to see for how many tuples, in how many tuples there is a yes. There are 14 tuples in total. How many out of 14? How many is yes? Can you just count how many? The total is 14. In 14, how many rows there is a yes? Anyone? We had solved the same problem. Even if you go to the previous problem, it is there. How many yes and how many no? Anyone, or should I call specific names? If that person is not there when I call, it's as good as he has joined the meeting and gone somewhere. Attendance won't be given. How many yes are there in the entire data set? Same data set which will be which we had used last time. Count and tell me. 9. Okay. So 9 out of 14 is yes. So this is your probability for class 1. So 9 out of 14 for same class 2, that is P of by the same thing. The second class is no. So it will be 5 out of 14. So these two things you have to first find out while solving a problem. You will get somewhere around 0.64. This you might get somewhere around 0.35. Now it's like you have found out this part, this second part. Now we have to find out the first part. Okay. X given a particular class. Here class is yes or a no. So you have to see what is the X. X is age is youth. So age is youth. for class yes and no, income is medium for class yes and no, student is yes for class yes and no, credit rating is fair for class yes and no. So all these things you have to find out one by one. Okay. So we'll do that one by one. It's like P of like age is equal to youth given Vice computer is yes. This is one thing. Same thing for age is equal to youth only. Vice computer is so these things you have to just find out. In the data set, just see where this age is youth, where in the age attribute, just see where youth is present, and the same row, see where S is present. First, you have to count the number of youths present. Out of that, you have to see in how many tuples there is AS. So, what is the count total number of count for youth in the entire data set, including yes and no? I just want the count of youth.
5, sir.
In the data set, is it 5? Youth is there 5 times. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, wait. Okay, so they have 5. Fine. So you have found out that P of Vice computer S is 9. Okay. So you are trying to find out age for youth when Vice computer is 9. So there are out of 9, out of 9, 9 is the number of S. Okay. So out of this 9, you told youth is total youth is 5, including both yes and no. With just yes, how much it is out of 5? Okay, Ethan has already told it's like 2 with yes and 3 with no. Okay. So out of this 9 yes, which we have found out of this 9 yes, there are 2 rows in which age is youth. Okay. Now the same thing. Out of 5 no's in the entire data set, out of 5 no's in the entire data set, there are 3 rows in which age is youth. Okay. This you have found out. Next, you have to see that this is done for age is youth. Now we have to do the same thing for income is medium. Same thing. Here it will change. Income is medium for both yes and no. So that will be same. And same thing will go for this one. Income will be medium. So can someone tell me what is out of S will be common here. So number of S denominator will definitely be 9 only. So in out of this 9 rows where S is present, total 6 yes. Okay, 4 is yes. Okay, there are totally 6 rows in which income is medium. As 18 told, there are totally 6. out of which 4 is yes and 2 is a no. Total yes in the data set is 9, out of which there are 4 s in which income is medium. Total number of rows for no is 5, out of which the row in which income is medium and the class is no is 2. Okay. Now this is done. The same thing you have to do for remaining 2. That is student is yes and credit rating is fair. Student is yes for both class S and no. Credit rating is fair for both class S and no. So can someone tell me the thing here? For student, yes, student equal to S, two values. What is the two values here? And credit rating is equal to fair for values. That is S and no both. Anyways, it will be out of 9 only for S. And one thing you have to do is out of 5 for no. Same thing. Out of 9 of 5. So student is says, Yatin says here is 6 and here it is 1. So C fair, credit rate is fair. In how many rows credit rate is fair and class is yes? If you count, it will be 6 and 2. Correct. 6 and 2. Okay. Now what you have got is you have got this particular thing x given ci and p given ci. Now what you have to do is find out x given ci. You have all the values for see here capital X. Capital X, as I told you, it is given by attribute vector. Here attribute vector is this: age is equal to youth, income is equal to medium, student is equal to yes, credit rating is equal to 4. So this you have found out for both the classes. Yes, no. You have the probabilities. Now you have to find out individually that it will be something like this. X such that he buys a computer. Okay. So for this, what you have to do, since buys computer is yes, you have to find the product of all this. Age is equal to youth, buys computer is equal to yes. This into the next one. Income is equal to medium, buys computers yes. Student is equal to yes, buys computers yes. Credit rating is fair, buys computers yes. So for all these 4 things, you have to multiply the values. That is 2.9, I mean 2 by 9 into 4 by 9 into 6 by 9 into 6 by 9. These 4 things you have to multiply. Whatever you get here, So for as far as this data is concerned, you will get 0.044. Same thing you have to do for no. P of capital X says that Pi's computer is no. So here everything will get replaced. So for all no's you have to find out. Okay. So it is like P of 8 Pi's computer is no, that is 3 by 5 into this, where Pi computer is no, that is 2 by 5. Next, student is yes, Pi's computer is no, that is 1 by 5. Credit rating is fair, and Pi's computer is no, that is 2 by 5. So these four things you have to multiply. So for Bice is equal to S, this is the answer. When you multiply for all the no, you will get answer as like 0.019. Okay, these two things you will get. This is for yes, this is for no. Okay, now you have this is for capital X. Okay, for class yes, this is for capital X, for class no. Now you have both the terms here. You have this entire thing for both the classes. For I is equal to 1 to m, that is 1 to 2. Here two classes, S and no. For both the classes you have this term. You have to multiply this, these both. Class of Ci, the second term is this one. P of Ci is this. Okay. So 0.64 is the answer. So for S, P of X, Y's computer is yes, is this into this. You will get some value. As far as this problem is concerned, you will get 0.028. This is for yes, and this this X given by its computer is no value for this. This is Px given Ci. You have to find out PCI. PICI you already found out here. Ci for no is 0.35. That you have to multiply with this value, 0.9 into 0.35. So for this you will get 0.007. So this is the final answers which you will be getting. As I told you, you have to maximize this. So whichever is maximum, that particular class, the classifier predicts as. So if you see this value, 0.028 and 0.007, 0.028 is more. So this is for yes and this is for no. Just remember that. This particular thing is for class yes, this particular thing is for class no. So since probability for class S is more, tuple X, that is this tuple X will be classified under class yes. Okay. So therefore the naive Bayesian classifier predicts class S for this particular tuple, because the probability for S is no. I mean S is more. For no it is less when compared to yes. Okay. Hopefully this is clear. If any doubts, classify now only. Don't make me come back again later. One small topic is remaining up. I mean, for as far as this class is concerned, which is very much related to this. After this, I won't start a new thing, even though the time is, 5-10 minutes would be remaining. I will stop. But I just want to know any doubts. Any doubts? Something not clear? Because data set might be anything, the tuple might be anything. You should know how to classify the tuple. If any doubts, please classify now only. I mean, clarify now only, so that I did not revisit again. In next class, don't ask me this, something related to this. I'm giving you time to ask doubts pertaining to this particular problem, naive base especially, or tree pruning, anything. So I'm not getting any response, so I'm assuming that there is no doubts. So I mean, there might be one peculiar case which you will encounter. Say for a particular tuple. Okay. Say assume that just assume that uh, for this case, student is equal to yes, and the class is no. Here it is 1. There is at least one tuple. Suppose there is 0. You don't find any tuple at all for that particular scenario where student is yes and class is no. What would happen for this case? Anyone? Find that there are no tuples with, I mean, just assumption. There, this case you will encounter. You should know how to solve. For a particular tuple, say student is, and class is no. There are no tuples as such. There are no no's when student is yes. All the classes are yes only. No, no, we shouldn't ignore the attribute. Prahlad is asking, should we ignore that? We shouldn't ignore the attribute. If you ignore the attribute, it's like you're ignoring the evidence. You shouldn't ignore. But if you take this thing as it is, what will happen? This will become 0. 0 anything into anything is 0. So this is one problem which you will be encountering or you might encounter. So there is a solution for this. So whenever you encounter a probability 0, that there is no tuple with the given condition or to satisfy certain condition, what you have to do is in general, the data set will be too huge for solving a particular problem in 1 hour class or 1.5 hour class, or maybe for 5 marks or 10 marks. You have taken just 14 tuples. This is just sub part of the data set, but in general, a data set D will be large in size. It might be millions of or thousands of tuples. So in that case, if you encounter a particular condition for which you will get probability 0, adding 1, okay, adding 1 for each of the class will not make a huge difference. So one example I will give you. Suppose that there is a class yes, Vice computer is yes. In a database D, we have 1,000 tuples. Class is Vice computer, that is yes or no, it might be anything. Database is D, and it containing 1,000 tuples, not 14. It contains 1,000 tuples or 1,000 rows. But you don't find any row in which income is low. Income in all the rows, income is either high or medium. There is no row in which income is low. Okay, but it's like you will 0 tuples with, again I'm telling, 1,000 rows in total, out of which 0 tuples with income low 990 with income medium, and remaining 10 with income high. Okay. So the probabilities in general will be, for income it will be 0 of 1000, that is 0. For medium it will be 990 of 1000, that is 0.99. For high it is 10 out of 1000, that is 0.01. This is normal, but you don't want this zero scenario because it might create problems while finding or while using your Bayesian classifier. So what you will do is, you will add one case for each of this income. Okay. So you will add one row when income is high. You will add one row when income is medium. You will add one row where income is low. Okay. So the total number of tuples will increase by 3 because you are adding 3 new rows, which each one of the values, one high, one medium, and one low. Now what will happen if you try to find the probability for medium? It will be 1 divided by 1003. It was 0 first, now it has become 1, but the size of the database has increased by 3 because you have added one value for each of this income, high, medium, and low. So 1000 becomes 1003, and but low becomes 1. So it will be 1 divided by 1003. Then medium was 990, but you have added 1. So it is 991 divided by 1003. And high was 10, but you have added 1. So it will become 11 divided by 1003. In this case, you have corrected that situation where you are getting 0 low category, or 0 tuples where you encounter a low. You are making it 1. Just by adding one row or 3 rows, it won't be having a major effect on the data set, which is huge in size. Okay? So this method is called Laplacian correction. Using this Laplacian correction, you can avoid computing probability values of zeros. You will be adding one value for each of the attribute. I mean, in that each of the values of a particular attribute in which you are encountering 0. So I have taken the example of income. In first, there were 0 rows where low was there, 990 rows where medium was medium. I mean, income was medium, and 10 rows where income was high. So I would be getting probability for low is 0. So to avoid this, I will add one low, one medium, and one high. So total number of tuples will become 1003, 1000 plus 3, 1003. So you have to find out probability for each of them. Now this 0 probability scenario will get avoided. It will be 1 divided by 1003, which is 0.001. 0.001 is not 0. You are avoiding the 0 condition. Okay? So this is how you correct a scenario where you are if you encounter a 0 probability for any particular case, and this is called your Laplacian correction. Okay. So with this, I would like to stop. Next, only two to three things are remaining in this particular chapter. That is, I guess one is your rule-based classification. That is, if, else, if, then, those rules. How ID3 is one classification we have studied. Bayesian classification is one more, and the third would be rules-based classification. The next is how to evaluate this model. That's precision, recall, F-score, all these things, and how to improve the accuracy. like boosting, and it's like one more thing is that few things like ensemble methods. It's like you are combining two, three classification methods to improve the accuracy. So all these things are very, very important. This, even though they are coming under data mining, it is extensively used in machine learning and your deep learning parts. Okay. So without this, you can't build any model in machine learning nor deep learning. This classification, clustering, etc. Okay. Classification, three things is there. Two things we have already studied. One more thing is that if else rules. Next is how to evaluate your model. You have build a model. You have to evaluate, right? How good is it? What is the accuracy? What is the efficiency? What is the precision? What is recall? Again, there are multiple permutation combination possible in questions, especially in the precision recall. Multiple types of questions might be asked. So unless you know exactly what is precision, what is recall, what is F score, you will not be in a position to solve. Even though you get the answer, you won't be in a position to check whether the answer is correct or wrong. And the last topic that would be remaining for this particular thing after everything is techniques to improve the accuracy, like boosting. ADA boost is one method. Ensembling techniques is one more method. There are two, three methods. All these things we'll be doing on Thursday's class. Thursday means next to next Thursday, because next Monday is exam. We lose class. Thursdays again exam. We lose class. Next Monday, coming Monday, next to next Monday is again your last exam. I think distributed systems again you lose class. So we will meet after 2 weeks. Okay. And before winding up, I just wanted to tell one thing. 17th your exam ends, and 18th is your lab exam, irrespective of which batch you are in. I think it circulated yesterday. Yesterday's batch had closed clearly, and I got the message. I mean, your CR forwarded the message in which the details are put up. I've told one correction. Whoever typed the message yesterday and sent it to your CR, so he has typed as 11/5/2021 to 17/5/2021 as project end sem. It's not 5, it's 6. So 11th June to 17 June. That only that correction I had told. I think CR would have corrected and circulated. So that is far away. What I'm trying to, I mean, what I want to tell is just for the near future. On 18th, Tuesday, 6 to 6:30 p.m., we will be having evaluation on Rapid Miner. Okay, it will be in form of a quiz, or maybe you'll have to execute something and share the screen. Again, this two batches had taken till now. Uh, that is batch 3 and batch 2, I guess. Okay. So few people had not uh, what is that installed